All right, last week we looked at how do we find surface area for our prisms. And some of you guys were choosing to use this formula. Some of you guys were choosing to use the net form. And I'll be honest with you guys, a lot of you guys who need to do redos on that homework assignment, it's because you didn't use this formula, that you're having difficulty using the net, okay? So I'm going to suggest that you guys really should use this formula because you're going to make fewer mistakes with it. For today's purpose as well, this is the formula that we're going to use. You can use the net form, but I think this is definitely probably going to be your easiest form to use, okay? When we do surface area for our cylinders, our formula is the same. Our letters mean pretty much the same thing. So like what we had last week, our S is still going to stand for our surface area. So you guys should be filling that in. P still stands for our perimeter, but remember with our circles that for some reason mathematicians don't call the perimeter on a circle a perimeter. They call it the circumference. So when we think about that we need to find the perimeter for our circle, we're really going to be finding the circumference. H is still going to be our height. And again, that's the height between the two shapes. So you're going to look at what kind of three-dimensional figure it is. Once you name it, you're going to figure out what's the height between those two shapes. And that's your H value. And B, remember, you guys think about it as base, but more specifically, it's going to be the area of the base. And again, whatever shape that you see it as, whether it's a triangular prism, or rectangular prism, or a cylinder, whatever shape you see it as, that's the shape you're going to find the area of. So today, we're going to be finding areas of circles. So let me remind you guys, again, how to get it right using this formula here. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to find the perimeter, or again, the circumference, because we're going to be working with circles today. I loved on your homeworks that when you guys did for prisms last week, a lot of you guys wrote out all three of these steps, and that helped you, again, to get it right. Second step, you're going to be finding the area of the base. Again, we're going to be looking at circles today, and so we're going to be finding the area of circles. And last but not least, plug directly into the formula. On the surface area for prisms, some of you guys were starting to square things, but there's nothing squared in here when you're plugging into the formula. So plug in identical to what the formula has. So before we move on and actually take a look at some examples, let's review our formulas for circles because it's been before spring break since we looked at these. So area for a circle is pi times our radius squared. And remember, for our purposes, we're using 3.14 as our pi. Circumference, there are technically two formulas for it. The one that we're going to be using, that we've always been using, is pi times diameter. And again, those formulas, along with the surface area formula, will be given to you when you guys take the test. Something I also want to review with you guys that I know some of you guys are having some difficulty with is distinguishing between radius and diameter. So I'm going to put in a circle here. And again, my circle is probably not going to be great. There we go. And I'm going to draw another one in. Remember, for area, we have to use the radius. Remember, radius goes from the center of the circle to an edge. That's our radius. Diameter, on the other hand, goes all the way through the circle. So we think about diameter goes all the way through the circle. And remember, there's a relationship between these two, that if I give you the diameter and you need the radius, we divide by 2 because radius is half of the diameter. Notice that radius is smaller than the diameter. If I give you the radius and you need the diameter, then you're going to multiply by 2 because the diameter is bigger. So we're going to practice that here in a little bit as we take a look at our examples. So taking a look at this first one, hopefully you guys are identifying this one as a cylinder. So we're going to be finding area and circumference of the circles as we plug into our formula. At the top here, I'm going to write down the formula so we have it easy for us to reference. P times H plus 2 times the area of our base. Our steps to get it right. First thing is we're going to be finding the perimeter. Now again, with a circle, it's technically not the perimeter, it's the circumference. So we're going to find the circumference by doing 3.14 times the diameter. So we need to look at our circle here. Is this the radius or is this the diameter that's given? If you need to, look back in your notes, but this is the radius. So to find the diameter, we have to multiply that by 2. So 6 times 2 is 12. So we're going to be using 3.14 times 12 to find our perimeter. And for this one, you should end up with 37.68. And again, if we're thinking about labels, remember perimeter has no exponents on it, just the label itself. So that's our first step to get it right. Our second step is to find the area, which is our B for base. And area for a circle is 3.14 times the radius squared, which again was given to us. So times 6 squared. When you're typing this into your calculator, don't forget the squared. That was missed a lot when we did stuff before spring break. Equals, that area is 113.04. And again, it's area, so it's centimeters squared. So here are our first 2 steps as we go through our steps to get it right. Our last one is how do we get it right? Plugging into our formula, our perimeter is 37.68 times the height. Again, the height is the distance between the 2 circles here. So that height between the 2 circles is 12. Plus 2 times the area of the base, which we found to be 113.04. Notice again, all I did was take each of the numbers that we needed and either got them from the formula or we had calculated them prior to plugging into the formula. On your homework, bare minimum, I want to see this. Ideally, I see all 3 steps, but I want to see this as a bare minimum. Type that into your calculator. And for your final answer, you should have your final answer rounded to the 10th place. So you should have 678.2. Label centimeters because it's area squared. This would be the area, surface area I should say, of this cylinder. If you have questions, help each other out so that way you can get this one right. All right, let's take a look at the next one here. Again, just to make it easy, I'm going to write the formula right up in the corner here. So we have that to reference. And our first step to get it right is to find the perimeter. And hopefully as you're looking at this that you are thinking, this is a cylinder, so my perimeter is really the circumference. So we're going to take 3.14 times the diameter. So we have to look, is the diameter given or is the radius given? My hope is you guys can recognize that's the radius. So we're going to double the 5 and we're going to find that our diameter is 10. So we're going to have 3.14 times 10 for our circumference, which is 31.4 inches. because again, perimeter and circumference don't have any exponents. Step 2 to get it right is to find the area of our base. Area of our base, 3.14 times our radius, which we said was 5, times 5 squared. Typing that into your calculator, you should have 78.5 inches squared. Also, as you guys are copying this down, as you're showing your work, if you're showing both of these steps, if you don't label these steps, that's fine. Again, I'm only concerned about your very, very last answer being squared or having the correct label and rounded correctly there. Our third step to getting it right is to plug into our surface area formula. P, we found at the very beginning to be 31.4 times the height between our two circles is 8 plus 2, which is always part of the formula, times the area of the base, which is 78.5. Go ahead and type that into your calculator. I'm going to give you guys a second to type that in to see what you guys come up for an answer, and hopefully we come up with the same answer. All right, you guys should come up with 408.2 inches squared rounded to the nearest tenths place. Again, if you guys have questions, help each other out so that way you guys can all understand how to do this one. All right, you'll notice on this next one, there's no picture to it. Cylinders are kind of nice problems to do even without a picture because it's very easy for a sentence or a phrase to be written that describes the cylinder to us. So this one, it tells us that it has a diameter of 20 inches and it has a height of 5.6. So this one already tells us what our H value is going to be when we plug into our formula. So that's kind of the nice thing when they're written in text is that the height is specifically told to you, okay? The part that gets to be a little bit tricky is trying to figure out what does that 20 represent. Is that the radius or is that the diameter? Does that go all the way through the circle or halfway through the circle? Hopefully you remember for this one if you want to draw a picture to talk about the circle part of it. And that diameter goes all the way through the circle. So D equals 20. But we also know we're going to need the radius. So if I only wanted to go halfway through the circle, my radius would be 10. So sometimes if there's not a picture drawn, that you can just draw the picture of the circle to help you figure out what does that 20 represent. Does it go all the way through the circle or just part way through? I'm going to write our formula on the side over here, again, for us to reference. As you guys are doing your homework, it would be really good, as always, to keep your notes out. But more importantly, so that way you can make sure you have your formula for surface area correct and your formula for circumference and circumference and area correct. Step 1 to get it right, you are going to find the perimeter. Perimeter or circumference, again, synonyms of each other, words that mean the same. 3.14 times the diameter, which is 20. So our circumference or perimeter for this one is 62.8, just inches for a label if we were thinking about that. Step 2 to get it right is the area of our base. And careful on this one, you're going to take pi times radius squared, so we want to do times 10 squared, which is 314 inches squared. Again, those two steps help us to plug into the formula correctly. And again, bare minimum, I need to see what you're putting into the formula. Ideally, I see what's in blue and red. But bare minimum, the next thing that I write is what I need to see on your homework plus your answer. So plugging in P for perimeter is our 62.8 times our height, which the problem was really nice and was really explicit and told us, is 5.6 plus 2 times the area of my base is 314. I haven't been very clear as well, but hopefully you'll notice that plugging into the formula here, I'm using the colors of where things came from. That 62.8 is both in blue and where we found it and plugging into the formula. 5.6 is something that we're getting from the problem or from the diagram of the picture, plus 2 times, that's always part of the formula, and that 314 in red, just again showing you that's coming from the area of the base that we found earlier. Here's what I'd like you guys to do on this one. I would like you guys to try this last example on your own, and then I'm going to have you guys press pause on the video, and when most people are done, we're going to go ahead and press play and see if we come up with the same answer. So you guys go ahead and try this one. Again, try to help each other out if some people are kind of confused, and in a couple minutes, press play, see if we come up with the correct answer. All right, let's take a look here. When you're all said and done, you should have an answer of 1,045.6 feet squared. With my answer, just so you know, I didn't round at any step. I used the exact number that when I calculated. If you were to round at each step, and I didn't say this earlier, your answer would be just off just a little bit, okay? So if you're someone that's rounding at each step, that's fine. I will take that into account when I'm taking a look at your homework. Start with, make sure your perimeter, you found that. You took 3.14 times 18. And then for your base, this one you needed the radius, so you had to take 3.14 times 9 squared. Careful to make sure this is a 9 because you need the radius. And last but not least, here's what it should look like plugging into your formula. And in the end, here's your final answer. If you guys have questions, help each other out. And then when you're ready, you guys are going to have the rest of the time to work on this homework assignment on page 741. 6 problems for you guys to do. I think the directions also tell you to find the lateral area and the surface area. Again, I just want you guys to focus on finding the surface area. Also, just a reminder, you're going to have your Chapter 12 test on Wednesday, okay? We'll review tomorrow, and then your test will be on Wednesday. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you guys tomorrow.